Hello and welcome to the Algarve International Circuit in Portimão for round 5 of the 420R Winter Series here at caterhamracer.com, the last chance Saloon qualifier. Chris Hutchinson here in the commentary box to take you through all of tonight's crucial action as we have 6 final spaces available for next week's grand final up for grabs. The last chance, as the name suggests, for all these drivers to get themselves into that the grand final and in with a chance of grabbing that title of season 11 champion here at caterhamracer.com. So we've had 4 races so far. Let's take you through and remind you of the season overview that we've been running as we started out on the 8th of November at Estoril, and we had our first 3 people snagging their qualification spot. Paul Donkin, Anthony Cook and Alistair Gregg all qualified at Estoril. Then we went to Hidden Valley on the 15th of November where Alex Ball, Ryan Hooker and Chris Skillicorn took their places. Then over to America, Road America this time for round 3, and that was Tom Willis, Will Race and James Fowler who took their spots. And last week, 29th of November at Road Atlanta, it was the turn of Paul Ferneyhoff, Ollie Ricks and David Rowe to take their spots. None of those drivers will be with us here tonight at Portimão because they are not allowed to enter this race. This is only for drivers who have not qualified yet, their last chance to get one of those qualifying spots. So it is a simple race to finish in the top 6 here tonight, as we're watching Andrew Parker, one of those people that might be favourites to take one of those spots if he can keep it all pointing in the right direction. He's following Steve Arnell on track. The drivers out here in qualifying, coming down towards their last 5 minutes of qualifying. You can see Andrew Parker there's topping the times at the moment. Steve Arnell in that 4th place. So, yeah, all the drivers will be looking to see whether they can finish in that top 6 and nab one of those final remaining places. 16 drivers out there this evening around this 4.6 kilometres, 2.9 mile circuit, and it never a dull moment around this track. It's hilly as you like, ups and downs everywhere you look. Gradient is something this is definitely not short of, and a lot of tricky corners as well with that gradient, but also long sweeping turns with late apexes. So we watch Paul Oglesby just climbing one of the curbs there as he tries to eke out every single last bit of speed. Also, track limits quite severe around this track, so we can see that only 12 people have set a lap time, and that might just be because they've all been tripping those track limit boards. So we watch Neil Pardo. Can he make his way up to near enough 11th? He's going to start. He often does well in the races with his consistency and safety out there. He might see himself up there. We do run damage on this service, so 70% damage. So if you do over-rev your engine or crash into someone else or something else, then you can put yourself out of the running, and that's where Neil Pardo will be seeing whether he can pick up those pieces. Steve Arnell, like we said already, he's been there or thereabouts throughout many a season here at caterhamracer.com. Can he do anything about getting one of these qualifying spots? He might have expected to already have one of those qualifying spots, but unfortunately not to be so far. So he's going to have to come out the other side of this qualifying session looking for his spot. Keith Holt, another driver, as you just see a red car in front. I think that might be James Houston next stage right there. He's just recovering back to the circuit, but Keith Holt just outside at the moment of those spots in that 7th place. But another driver who's put in some really good performances over the course of this season, and see whether he can take that step up. But good to see him out there on the service, as it is with all these other drivers out here running this 420R race machinery then. Equivalent of the Caterham Seven Championship UK car in the real world, where we have slick tyres, 6-speed central box, and oodles of grip, and national championship in real life. So a very, very capable race car indeed, and drivers showing what they can do around this Algarve circuit. And else managed to get himself in front of Parker. Oh, and just again the curse of the commentary and car. They're all heading onto a new lap, so I'm just going to go on board with Andrew Parker, who we just saw punting. In fact, he's easing off. They're all queuing up. They don't want to go there. So let's follow on board with Arnell, the guy that was just punted, as he starts then a lap of this Algarve. Probably his final lap then, 3 minutes of this session to go. He might just get another one in after this. Long front straight, start finish straight here. Heading down into Primaria, the first corner on this track. Hard to see it because you have to go down the hill. You can see this dramatic downhill braking zone into a kind of fast right-hand kink. Try and keep it all within track limits. Does that nicely. Number 2 is a kind of non-event really, but we have to get on the brakes heavily for the right-hander of Lagos third corner. So we head up the hill, position the car well, and you won't have to get out the throttle. Arnell doing that well, using every little last bit of that to contain and use all that pace. Another little straight, and we've got a big hairpin coming up. Where is it? Here it is, another really heavily downhill braking spot. Can we hit that apex? It's going to be a late apex. There he goes. Does nicely hook everything up as we head back on up the hill then into turn 6. A little left-hand kink, nothing to worry about as long as you're single file, but you'll start getting attention if you've got other cars around you. And you've still got other cars around you now, it's going to be a problem because we're on a right-hand approach to a tight right-hand turn number 8 of Samsung. As we head again over the crest of the hill, enough to get your stomach churning, and a left-hand approach up the hill here. And Craig Jones, turn number 9, again absolutely flat out. Position the car over to the left for the right-hand approach to the Portimão corner, turn 11. Hook the apex up. Gather it all up before we have the circuit again dropping away down us. Another left-hand approach, which is flat out again to a tight-hand left-hand hairpin over the top of the corner. Can't see it again until you're on top of it. Don't hit that big yellow curb, but unsettle the car. As we go into the tail end of this track then, this is where he got punted a lap before. Missed the apex that time. Steve losing the rear of the car as well, having to get it all balanced up, see whether he can do anything about it as we head into this final bend. Really, really fast final bend, but still needs a bit of a lift or a gear change to get that nose tucked in. He does that. That means he's going to be able to get out onto this straight. Can he improve from his current position of 4th place with that lap? Got one more attempt after this one. It's a long way down to that line, isn't it? He does not improve that time through, nor does anyone following him. One more attempt, but thank you for keeping it all in line, and thank you for Andrew Parker not punting us that time through as we rode on board with Andrew Parker. So as we rode on board with Steve Arnell, Andrew Parker does head the lead with a 56.1, a fantastic lap time. Now that's 4/10 quicker than Gary Preble and much quicker than any other lap I've seen out there. Gary Preble just put onto our screens now in that grey machinery. He's following the grey of Andrew Parker as well, seeing whether he can get a tow around this long swooping front and back straights. And he's in the grey car tonight, so keep an eye out for this car. So we saw a purple car there. That was Evgeny Oblings facing the wrong way. Sorry, Olenik facing the wrong way. Can anyone else make a movement late? Matthew Shepherd down in 6th, just back from his trip to Barbados. A very successful trip to him to Barbados to race his Real World 310R on the Bushy Park circuit. Welcome back and into 6th place at the moment. So just starting within those qualifying positions as we speak. Rebel losing the rear of his car. That's not going to help his lap time at this stage of proceedings. So let's keep an eye on that left-hand tower to see whether anyone else can make places up as they head across this line. Qualifying time is over, but if they were on a lap when they started this, they can do it. But Dan Jude will have to return back to the pits, as you can see him doing so, as will Robles. So let's go back to Preble and that group of cars. We know they're just coming to finish their lap, but it's Parker out front on the timing boards right for the moment. Don't think Preble's lap's going to do anything on that time through. Parker a bit wide there. As I said already, track limits around here are quite severely enforced, so the stewards will be giving people penalties if they do drift off the curbs and off onto track limits this time out. And so keep an eye out for cars having to go slowly during the race too. One of the penalties that can get applied is a slowdown penalty, so we'll keep an eye out for that. It looks like this qualifying session is pretty much done, so let's just review the standings at the end of that 15-minute session for you. So Andrew Parker heads the field there with a 156.148, great time there, and then it's Preble in that second place ahead of Watson, and then Steve Arnell, Oglesby, Matt Shepherd, Dan Jude, Keith Holt, Nick Platts. We are seeing a couple of drivers going over there. Doesn't look like that had any effect. That was Hardcastle just going across the line there. So Anthony Hamilton rounding out that top 10. And then Neil Pardo, Dave Hardcastle, we just saw going across the line. Tom McEwing way down there in 13th, not where he expected to be. Evgeny Onynik in 14th, Robert Boogie, and then James Houston rounds out this 16-car field. So yeah, lots of action on display there, and a little bit of a punt we saw. Maybe we'll see more of that. I say it's a tricky old track to keep everything under control and pointing in the right direction. If they do make contact out there, then we expect them to wait for the driver that they did make contact with to get back ahead of them into the race and back up to speed before continuing their race. It's one of the ways we discourage any kind of contact out here, like you would be discouraged in real world by damage and stewards. So we are trying to make everything as realistic as we can towards real Caterham racing, as our tagline says. It's trying to make it as close to the real thing as we can in this virtual world. And my goodness, we've seen some fantastic racing, and we're looking forward to the final next week with the drivers that have already qualified, plus the 6 that are going to grab their spot tonight to be the best of the best of season 11. And we're looking forward to some great racing along that with those drivers around the Kazan Ring racetrack. Not one we've raced here before, and it will be great for them to get out there. Another track with undulation and expecting action aplenty. Not too long then before we get to head out onto the grid. For those who were watching last week, they might have spotted an errant car astray in the middle of the track after lap 1. Let's hope that doesn't happen again today. Let's see whether we can avoid that as we see them here. Great shot. Let me get stream out here. See them all lined up there with Andrew Parker in that pole position in his grey machine with the orange roll cage alongside the grey machine of Gary Preble, but he's got the black roll cage. Then we've got Richard Watson in third place, yellow car there, you can see, alongside the kind of predominantly yellow car of Steve Arnell, but he's got a bit of a patchwork pattern over his car. And behind them, it's Oglesby in that sort of lime green car, Matt Shepherd in his yellow with a black stripe down it. And then it's Dan Jude in the white car this evening. So that takes you through your top 7 or 8. 7. Keith Holt is 8th and rounds out that top 8. So in the black car. So that's your top 8. They're the drivers who are in good positions at the moment to take those qualifying spots. But let's see how everyone gets on in tonight's race. Not necessarily a crucial start. I think it's more going to be about keeping everything in alignment as you go through the course of this race. You can see the revs rising then as the drivers are getting ready. The flags are on, the red lights are on the screen, ready to go on. When they go out, we'll get this round 5 for the last chance qualifiers up and running here at Portimão. The lights are out and away we go. A nice start from our front row. A little bit of bogging, and a little bit further back we have got one driver, Houston, making up a space there as they head off the grid and into turn 1, diving down the hill. Then it's a Park around the outside. Preble looking to see whether he can do anything on the inside. It could be race over very quickly for some of these drivers if they're not particularly careful. Preble making the most of that. Richard Watson in his yellow machine there in third place ahead of Arnell. Then comes Oglesby and Matt Shepherd. So fairly easing off that start, but we have got to change for the lead with Preble taking over that place as we watch Arnell seeing whether he can get back get in front of Richard Watson, who had a great qualifying position to see himself into that third place. They are alongside as they head down into this tight left-hand hairpin. That was white car. That was Holt, was it? Who was in the white car? Sorry, I'm just getting myself. Dan Jude locked up there. He did manage to avoid everyone, I think, or rather, I imagine everyone else avoided him. Houston dropping back, and McEwing also dropping a little bit back. He made a couple of places up early, but he's dropping back again now, so not the start he wanted. Arnell losing the rear of that car. He's going to come under pressure now from Oglesby, who's also under pressure from Dan Jude. That locked up white car we saw into the hairpin that time, but it's still Preble who leads Parker. There's Oglesby going out wide. That's not where you want to be, but he's going to be alongside Dan Jude as he heads into this turn. In fact, he's 2 for 1 as he goes down the inside of Arnell, who has to let him go. Matt Shepherd's running absolutely out wide there, and he hopefully won't have a penalty. If he does, he's got to then get out the throttle, and he'll lose a lot of places in the early part of this race. He's already lost 1. He's down into 9th place now, so the qualifying positions disappearing off up the road. Gary Preble, though, still leads this field of 16 cars, heading through then to complete their first lap, this final corner. Even the final corner, which is a fat out right-hander, still has gradient in it. You can see how the track drops away. Parker's happy at the moment to just follow Preble completing this lap. We watch this large field then heading through our screen, all line astern. Absolutely nose to tail there for Dan Jude and Keith Holt as they went into turn 1 that time through. So we watch them on this curb cam. There's Dan Jude locked up again. He's having an awful lot of problems locking his car up. That's going to not endear him to the drivers around. Arnell now round the outside and hoping that, again, that doesn't happen with his car in the way. It can be the end of both of their races. A little bit easy. It's easy to lock a brake, to snatch a brake, and once you do that, you do lose a lot of that braking prowess, and therefore you will unlock and lock up and steer wide. Absolutely nose to tail with the top two there. They head into this iconic left-hand hairpin at the bottom of the hill there. You'll see a lot of pictures like that as you go and look at the motoring press, and we can do it here in the virtual world in the comfort of our living room lounges and bedrooms. Parker has taken that lead then, so it was absolutely nose to tail into that hairpin. He managed to get his car ahead, deciding that he's not happy to sit behind Preble, while Watson catches up eagerly behind them in the yellow car, looking menacing there in his yellow machine. And then Oglesby follows on behind him. Parker, though, does still manage to just about keep it all together. He was offline there, and now Preble's got the better approach to this left-hander. Remember, those left-handers are flat out, but he's lost a bit of a head of steam as he heads up the hill. So this battle is definitely not over, but they'll be mindful that they've got to make it work. They've got to make it stick, because there is their last chance to qualify for that position. And normally they'd expect to be there already, and they just the run this year has just not been in their favour. Dan Jude still finds himself in a qualifying position in 6th place in that white machine. It's not been a quiet race for him, and he's got Matt Shepherd coming back through that field, and Matt Shepherd's dragging along Nick Platts. Tom McEwing not too far off the back of them, but he's got a bit of work to do with only 21 minutes of this race to go. That's not ideal. 57.382. Parker sets fastest lap, still not anywhere near his qualifying time at the moment, but he's having to defend throughout the course of this race as everyone else streams across the line then. Shepherd in that 7th place, eager to see what he can do about that white car of Dan Jude. Parker still ahead then, Preble behind with Richard Watson, seeing if he can gap. That gap's sort of been consistent, hasn't it? In this simulator world, the toe in these Caterhams starts from about half a second back, so in the real world probably starts from about 2.5 seconds back, if not more, but in this simulator world, the toe doesn't kick in until you're with half a second. So keep an eye on those gaps on the left-hand side of your screen between drivers, the numbers to the right of their names. And as soon as you see that going down below 0.5, you'll start seeing the effect of the toe, as we may be able to zoom into Anthony Hambleton, who is in the toe here of Pardo. Pardo has made a good early start. He's up into 10th place. Hambleton hooks that apex up, whereas Pardo missed it, and that's going to draw him even closer as they head into this left-hander. Still within that 5/10 or just outside now, but he'll see if he can get back in this braking zone. Right-hander braking zone to this sort of tight, late apex right-hander. Down across the hill. Hampton looking down the inside of Pardo. Can he do anything about it? They're going to go side by side through that. They've got tight on the apex. Nothing to be done there, though. Did well to avoid contact between the two of them. Great to see the battles and the action all the way down through the field. Arnell there we can see coming through our screen. This back to the sort of lead group as we watch Watson head through this final turn. There goes Oglesby. Arnell on his tail. And looking like they're pulling clear then of Dan Jude in that car, who has now got Matt Shepherd for company. Let's go on board with Matt Shepherd then as we're coming down this long straight. He's pulling to the outside. That's going to be the outside of turn 1. But if he's got enough momentum, he can make that stick. They're going to be absolutely side by side through this right-hand kink. I say it's a bit more of a kink. Another lock up from Dan Jude. Shepherd throws it down the inside. Is clear and is able to chop across, but we're heading into a right-hand hairpin. Dan Jude's going to go back down the inside there. Everything stays in alignment. Matt Shepherd gives him room, but it is going to be Jude ahead of him as they head up the hill then. But it's not looking like it's decided fully yet. Matt Shepherd seeing where he can go left and right. He's back from the winter sun of Barbados, now into the sun of the simulator world in the Algarve Portimão circuit. Still nothing yet, but he knows what's on offer up in front. One position ahead, and he gets that qualifying position. It certainly looks like he's got the speed in his number 80 DPR sponsored car. Looking down the inside there of Portimão, nothing to be done, but again, absolutely zero gap between these two cars, and they've got to be careful if they Shepherd will be looking in his mirror for the green car of Platts there, who is also ready and stepping up to see whether he can have enough. Shepherd again down the inside then as we go to the right-hander approach. There's so many opportunities with the actual racing line being out wider on the circuit. Matt Shepherd does make that stick for the time being, but it doesn't look like it's going to stick permanently. Dan Jude back down the inside. This time doesn't lock up, but does lose the rear of his car. So that is going to solidify that place, because now Dan Jude's going to have to protect himself from Nick Platts, who looks like he wants to see whether he can do anything about a couple of drivers in front. Matt Shepherd then in the 80 car, clear of Dan Jude for the time being, looking to see whether he can do anything about the gap to Arnell. 2.7 seconds up the road, so we'll keep an eye on whether that gap starts coming down. Arnell is the next person who looks like he might be in for a bit of a tow. So coming down the straight, you can see their time clicking down. The car in front of the Imeco sponsored Oglesby just getting closer and closer as we head down this long straight, and after we get through a couple of these next right-handers, we'll have another bit of a straight to see if we can do any more about it. Let's stay on board then with Arnell as he sees what he can do to negotiate this next straight, and can he do anything about Oglesby in front of him. He's going to have to go over this crest, and then we've got a long period of straight. It's not looking twice, just outside that 5/10, just looking to see whether he can do anything about it. Eking up closer, but he's going to have to get a bit of a run through the next few corners as they head downhill then. So he's not made anything go. Again, Steve Arnell's got a Wisen Us head on his shoulders to know that he's in one of those qualifying positions, and all he can do is lose that. He will be aware of Shepherd behind him that he is ready to close up. The drivers on board do have all the information available, so they can see who's coming up behind, who's disappearing off at the front, and they can also get the time gaps read out to them constantly, so they know how they're progressing through the course of the race. We are nearly side by side then. That gap has disappeared. Arnell going to look down the outside of this right-hand approach. A bit of a lock-up from Oglesby, but it's all under control as they head over another crest down the hill. Nothing doing this time through the left-hander. The gap is evaporated, so Oglesby is going to have to be working hard, and he's going to be looking as much in his mirrors as he is hoping to hook up all these apexes as we come towards the end then of another lap here. 5 in the bag already. They'll be looking to start their 6th lap very shortly. 15 minutes still to go then. Plenty of action still to be had. Matt Shepherd has comfortably pulled ahead by a second over Dan Jude. We see a little bit of movement a bit further down the line. So what's going on there? I can see Pardo getting back up to speed with another driver. Looks like Anthony Hambleton and Pardo maybe had a coming together there. We saw their battle a little bit earlier, looking like it was coming to a head. And see down the line, David Carcastle in his light blue car there disappearing off in 10th place. So all change in the middle field. And just as we took our attention away from the battle, I can see that Arnell did make that one stick. Can he make it permanent though, as we saw Matt Shepherd eventually managing to do, or will Oglesby find a way to come back at him? This Algarve scenery here as we head then down another one of those straights. Oglesby looking down the inside again, sort of feigning to the inside. Had to get on the brakes though, because Arnell had that covered off, and if he had persisted with it, that would have only resulted in contact. Matt Shepherd 1.9 seconds, so from 2.7 to 1.9, he is closing in to this battle fairly rapidly as they hold each other up. Again, not crucial at this point, but Matt Shepherd is solidifying that 6th place, so all the drivers will be concentrating as hard as they can on making sure they hit all of their markers, their braking points, their turning points, their acceleration points, trying to keep this tricky machine all in a line and under control so that they don't lose time, don't lose energy. It is worth knowing that Andrew Parker has now solidified that gap out front, hasn't he? 2 seconds to the good over Gary Preble, who is nearly over 3 seconds ahead of Watson, who comes through in that 3rd place. He's going to be keeping in his mirrors because that gap down to Steve Arnell is coming down. He's dragging Oglesby with him. And Matt Shepherd hasn't managed to get any more time out of that. So in fact, his gap's going back up again. So has Matt Shepherd made a mistake? As we weren't watching him, he's in the middle ground, isn't he? It's very easy to do. It's kind of you've got a comfortable place. You can concentrate on your own race, but there's also a bit of your brain will be drifting to, am I closing up to the guys in front, and who's coming up to chase me down from the rear? the moment he's still got that place, but Dan Jude is not completely relented. It looked like he had broken the back of that battle, but it's all coming back together again. We say battles all the way through our field. Just watching Olyanik and Houston having a battle. They've just swapped positions. Houston in the red machine just following on behind this purple machine. So absolutely nose to tail here at the rear of this field. Worth also saying that a couple of our qualified drivers, or a few of our qualified drivers, are still out on the B server that we've got, seeing what they're doing. Currently Chris Skillicon leading Paul Fernoff in the battle on our B grid this evening. Nick Platt's here in that middle ground then. He's again can see that qualifying position just a bit further up the tarmac. That yellow machine of Matt Shepherd holds it. He wants it, but he's got Dan Jude in the way. And can he get through both of them to see whether he can? I think it's going to take at the moment a mistake from one of these drivers. They don't look like they're making too many mistakes. I know I'm again testing the curse of the commentators. Dan Jude locking up again. He's going to have a slick tyre, an Avon slick tyre, like a 50p piece by the time he gets to the end of this race. In the real world, he will certainly be struggling by now. In the simulated world, we have actually removed tyre wear from our model just so that actually everything is as even as you can get it. And yeah, so these cars are absolutely identical for all of our drivers out here on the service. We give them a fixed setup, so they can't even change and adjust the setup. All they've got is a brake bias valve, which they can play with to adjust the balance in the braking zone very slightly. So absolutely identical machinery. So anyone who's setting up lap times out front like 56.2 for Andrew Parker, well, everyone else knows that that's happening with exactly the same machinery that they've got under them. It's one of the things we do on our service. We're not interested so much in spending hours and hours solidifying and perfecting a setup. We prefer to get out there and go racing, just as we do in the real world with our real Caterhams. Many of the drivers out here or out on our service are real world Caterham racers, so they really do take the they know what it takes to race these Caterhams in real life. And yeah, it's a good opportunity for us to see some of the field that we're tend to be in sort of midfield battles in our regular racing when everyone's on board, but it's their chance to shine tonight to see who's going to get to the front. At the moment, shining bright is Andrew Parker, out front by 2.7 seconds now, so that gap is growing, and Watson is falling further back behind Preble, and that is a developing battle as we head into the second half, or we're well into the second half of this 25-minute race, then 10 minutes of this race to go. But Watson has slowly been dropping backwards towards Arnell. Arnell now within the 1.3 seconds. And that is dropping slightly. Again, he's got 1.3 second gap back to Oglesby, who he has managed to solidly displace now. I know one of the drivers who has, I think, been to Portimão in real life. I'm not 100% on that, but he races in the Caterham Graduate Series. I know the graduates have certainly been to this track, and drivers who have been there are probably in for a good advantage, because such is the technical nature of this track. It really does help to have that real world knowledge that you can then apply to the simulator world. The cars we've got here that Arnell has actually lovingly helped create along the baseline of Ben Obro and Jaroslav Czerny, who helped us in the early days to build these mods and what we base this whole race series off of. And over the times, we've had plenty of people help us out, Arnell, building this latest 420R Caterham 7 UK spec car. And the driver's absolutely loving it. Paul Donkin, who races in the Real Race Series, really does rate this model and says he gets an absolute benefit from racing the simulator ahead of racing in the real world, to get himself used to that sort of cut and thrust and where the overtaking opportunities are, how you can generate time around the tracks that we attend. Watson then 1.3 seconds ahead, so that gap is solidified, stabilised, I should say, just for now. But you know that he'll be looking in that mirror as he does hook up that apex nicely, so no time lost there with 8 minutes of this race to go. Who's as close as you like on the track? Dave Hardcastle, Anthony Hambleton, as you say, Anthony Hambleton just drifting wide there, but Hardcastle looking like he's trying to see whether he can do anything about Keith Holt just in front of him. They are about 8 seconds back from Tom McEwing. Again, Tom McEwing not having the race evening that he would want. 13 seconds off the back of Nick Platts there, who are the drivers fighting for that final qualifying position. But these drivers here battling oftentimes a B race, so they'll be on our C Racer B grid. But tonight they're on this A grid, vying for those qualifying positions, but having a lot of fun in their battles. David Hardcastle getting his car under control. He's new to our service. He's very welcome here and doing a good job of keeping everything under control in these tricky corners, long sweepers and gradients, up, down like a roller coaster. Gap's come down to a second here then in this back to this lead group. Matt Shepherd's still got that second over Dan Jude in 7th place, so he's still looking okay, but he's dropped back from Oglesby, so he's 3 seconds back there. Nick Platt's another further second and a half back from Dan Jude, so they're going to have to do something in this line of final 7 minutes if they want to try and gain one of those qualifying positions. At the moment, it doesn't look like that's happening for them, but 7 minutes is still plenty of time for incident and issue. And this one looks like it could be a building towards the tail end of this race. Will Arnell be brave enough, though, to see whether he can make that move, or is he just going to sit and follow this battle, knowing that he's got that qualifying position in the bag? 4th place, absolutely solid qualifying position. Doesn't want to throw that away, but I'm sure the racer in him will see that position up front and maybe want to take this podium heading into the final, the race, the grand final we've got next week. Camera angles give a really good impression of all the ups and downs, but you can bet your bottom dollar that it will be, in real life, it feels even more of a roller coaster. You feel the stomach leaving, just as you do when you go over humpback bridges. You know, that feeling of track dropping away from you, bit of negative G leaving your stomach behind, and certainly a lot of that going on. You can see how steep these hills are, and what a fantastic circuit and facility this is on the Algarve. Preble so far in that 2nd place. Again, we just whilst we watch this battle develop as on our screens, Preble is still solidly ahead of us, and looking to see whether he can just hold on. Watson and Arnell's the battle we can see here, and then we've got Oglesby and Shepherd still in that final qualifying position, and well clear now of Dan Jude. So Arnell then now sits just over that half second back. He's going to be closing in on his prey, the car in front of the yellow car of Watson. Not this time through, but it's only taken a couple more laps, didn't it? Last time we saw a car move into this position to get through. Arnell is distinctive number 6. Absolutely closes up massively under the braking there, although he loses the rear through the apex of that corner. So what he gained in that braking zone, he's now lost out again as they head up the hill. He can't rest because the 2 cars behind him are still there, and looking to see what they can do in the final 4.5 minutes as my voice starts to fade away, just like the sun setting on these qualification opportunities for our drivers. Dan Jude, Nick Platts, now or never for those drivers. But it looks at the moment like they are going to have to settle themselves for a spectator role next week, watching the grand final unfold at the Kazan Ring. Neil Pardo there unfortunately ends up back in the pits, and James Houston also showing as a DNF. Not sure if that is related, the 2 drivers ending up at DNF similar times, so hope they haven't had too many incidents out there, but pulled back into the pits. They're not going to get to the finish of this race. They will not take one of those qualifying positions then. Preble 4 seconds back from Parker, and a good 5.7 seconds clear of Watson. Watson has again pulled clear. I wonder whether Arnell is just easing off to get that gap develop again so he doesn't put any pressure on Watson. It's the best way of keeping a driver going quickly in front of you, is to make sure you don't look like you're going to overtake them at every opportunity. That just slows you both down, and I'm pretty sure Arnell's wise enough to have thought that one through as well. Remember, the podiums on our qualifying races, they count for nothing. It's just all about those qualifying spots into the grand final, and none of your preceding races matter. It's all even. It's just whoever wins next week's grand final is crowned Series 11 champion. So absolutely the most important thing is to get into the final, and then who knows what can happen. Everyone's got their best chance. Who knows, there'll be some people who really do favour the Kazan Ring, will have an extra degree of speed around there that may find themselves competing in that for that win, even if they are just using this last chance qualifier to try and get their spot there. So absolutely even Stevens next week in that grand final. So 12 people already qualified will be joined by the 6 that will be getting their spot tonight. Here, this 2-litre Ford Duratec engine in the Caterham 7 Championship UK spec car. 6-speed SADF sequential gearbox on slick tyres and mightily stiff suspension. It really is a very, very race-focused car. You can see the solid tonneau cover that sits alongside the drivers as well, which distinguishes itself from all of the other cars in the Caterham Motorsport ladder, who they don't have that tonneau cover. We've got Watson losing the rear of the car, and he can contact with Arnell just as in this late part of this race. Their drivers are all getting tired. Shepard's going to get past him as well. That will it might well have caused him and Arnell damage, as we've got drama in this last minute and a half then of this race. So Watson now finds himself in that 6th place, just behind Matt Shepard, who's moved up into 5th place. Hopefully Arnell and Watson's cars are not badly damaged. Arnell still looks like he's up and running, as I see behind. Cliff Holt's just losing a space or two there to Anthony Hamilton. They're swapping, in fact, backwards and forwards, but the late drama's definitely with this group here, as it's all changed then. What looked like an absolutely solid performance, as Watson is again losing the rear of that car. 25 minutes is a long time to drive these cars for real, and also in the simulator. You really do have to concentrate, and he lost the rear. Arnell, let's check on him, because his car looks to be heading in the right direction, but it's easy to bend a steering arm in those situations and have something off-centre steering. Hopefully he's hooking that apex up nicely. He has got Oglesby for a company, but it is Arnell who now finds himself in 3rd place. So Andrew Parker heads this field ahead of Gary Preble, then Steve Arnell. Oglesby now finds himself in that 4th place, with Shepard in 5th, and then comes Watson. He's got a 1.7 seconds over Dan Jude. So again, it looks like he might be okay. It's just as well he had that time gap, because he nearly threw it all away. As we watch then Andrew Parker coming through then to the tail end of this lap. 4 seconds on the clock to go. So this is the last lap. This is the last corner then of this last chance Saloon qualifier. He's managed the situation well. 2nd off the line after Gary Preble made move up, but he managed to grab it all back together again. He's going to weave in delight as he heads down the straight then towards this start-finish line. And he is going to take that victory ahead of Gary Preble in 2nd place there. Coming over the crest of the distance, we can see Steve Arnell heading towards us now, ahead of Oglesby. Next up is Shepard, and then the ailing Richard Watson in that 6th place, just ahead of Dan Jude, who comes home just ahead of Nick Platts. Just outside for those two of those qualifying positions, though, and then we've got a little bit of a time to wait before we get to see Tom McEwing, who's not going to be part of our final this time out. So unfortunate for Tom. Here he comes in his black and green machine, but he isn't going to make it to our grand final this time. Champion in real life, but not going to make it a champion in this series. Hamilton crossing the line. Next up, another bit of a gap here back to Dave Hardcastle. We saw having that great battle with earlier on, and here he comes down then that start-finish straight. His light blue machine. Induction of fire into a season, his first season here at caterhamracer.com, and we look forward to seeing him in future seasons. Rob Boogie just coming around then the final bend in his orange machine. Haven't seen much of him in this race, but comes across in that 13th place, keeping everything in one piece as he heads through to finish his race. And then Evgeny Olyanik is going to finish in that 14th place. We've got 2 DNFs from Neil Pardo and James Houston, so unfortunate to see them out. But their racing is done for this season. We'll look forward to seeing all of those drivers in our next one. So let's confirm that race result for you then. It was Andrew Parker taking the win over Gary Preble in second place. Comfortable 5-second lead. And he had a comfortable 10 seconds then over Steve Arnell, who late on took that place when Richard Watson spun. Oglesby and Matt Shepherd take 4th and 5th, with Richard Watson in that 6th place. Dan Dew just outside that qualifying position. He's only less than a second back from Richard in front of him. Nick Platts followed him home straight away, with Tom McEwing 9th, Keith Holt in 10th. Anthony Hamilton, Dave Hardcastle, Robert Boogie, Evgeny Olyanik, and then Neil Pardo, James Houston round out our 16-driver field. All right, then, let's see whether we can have a chat with our podium positions. And let's start with the man who put our car together. If he's available, I'm going to grab Steve Arnell and let's have a chat with him. Hey, Steve, have you got us in the commentary box?
Yes. Hi, Chris.
Job done, but it got a bit fruity right at the end there as everything looked like it was calming down. A bit of late on drama. Crikey, I hope your car was okay.
Well, it had suspension damage for the last lap and a half, so my hands were sort of almost 9 o'clock at the top of my steering wheel, but it handled well enough to get me through the end. I just was hoping it wouldn't throw me off, but yeah, thankfully it's job done, as you say.
Yep, job done. I'm just getting your car on the screen so we can see it in all its glory, but job done, and everything, slate wiped clean. So, you're in that final, and I know that you like the Caterham, so maybe in with a chance.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, this is the 4th Winter Series we've done, and I think 3 of these I've gotten through on the last qualification round. So yeah, I do like to take it to the wire.
You love the drama. Ready for next week, though. We're looking forward to seeing you out there, seeing what you can do in your number 6 car, and we'll see you there.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. Cheers.
All right, let's have a word if Gary Preble's on. Gary, have you got us in the commentary box?
Hello there.
Hello. Well done tonight on securing your qualifying spot. Looked like you were going to take that. Well, you did take that early lead, but it wasn't quite to be as the race went on. Parker just had that little bit of extra speed tonight.
He did, yeah. I saw his initial early in the hot laps and thought, Christ, I'm going to do well to ever catch that time. And yeah, he's super consistent as well. And I think I got the quickest lap that I done during the race. But yeah, once the toe was broken, very, very difficult. And Andrew was, fair play to him, super consistent. And yeah, just struggled to keep with him. But it made it nice and easy. We got away from the gaggle, and it was quite a lonely race. But did what we needed to do.
Yeah, one way it takes the pressure off, doesn't it? That you didn't have to worry about in front or behind. But equally, that adds its own little pressure as you just try and not let your brain wander away from you.
Exactly that. Yeah, I just stayed focused to the back of Andrew's car, and as I said, I managed to keep with him for a few laps, and we were both putting in sort of personal best, I think. And he's just so consistent. And I made 1 or 2 little scratchy errors, nothing drastic, but like you said, just enough for him to get away and break the toe, and then that was it. Quite a lonely race, and just kept my head down and stay focused.
Slate wiped clean though. Time to get practicing Kazan Ring, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, mate. Yeah, I certainly will. I'll be putting in the laps.
Absolutely. Speak soon.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. Cheers, mate.
Alrighty, and then let's see whether Andrew Parker, have you got us in the commentary box?
Hello, Cheesy. How you doing?
Very good. Nice controlled race. Little, not a lights to flag, but near enough, I would say. It was a pretty doshgarn good effort.
Yes, it was a Donks-like or Geruta-like performance, which is significantly easier to do when they're not here.
Yes, and they're going to be back being in Donks will certainly be back being a peculiar nuisance, no doubt, to that. But I guess, everyone starts with an even go, and Kazan Ring's new for everybody.
Yeah, I think it'll be great racing. All of these longer tracks, generally, this one maybe not so much, but the others like Road America, Road Atlanta put in some great racing, some great Caterham-esque virtual racing. So yeah, looking forward to it.
And you'll be glad to know that we did catch several of your punts on on camera, just so that you can know that we're watching all the time.
Perfect. That's I would expect nothing less.
Indeed. Right, we will see you again next week. Good luck and get practicing.
All right, cheers, mate. Take care.
Alrighty, let's call it at that point then. It's been a fantastic last chance qualifier. Bit of drama late on, wasn't it? Top 6 drivers. So Parker, Preble, Arnell, Oglesby, Shepherd and Watson join the existing drivers out on track ahead of next week's grand final on the 13th of December, Kazan Ring. If you've enjoyed the racing action tonight, we get to do it all again next week with all the best drivers on the series. They will be going for that title of Series 11 champion, the 420R Winter Series at caterhamracer.com. I can't wait to bring you all the action in 7 short days.